So I am unashamedly going to start with a question. It's a question I've been asking for probably 15 years now, and some of you I know will have heard me ask it, but here it is. And what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to pop the answer into the chat. And then Laura, if you can just give me some of the answers, that would be really helpful. So here's my question. How many extraordinary leaders do you know? So give us a number, pop it into the chat. Laura, if you can start just sharing the numbers with me.
So we've got 2, 1, 0, 3, a couple of 5s. We've got a 10, which I think might be a record. More 2s, 1, 4, 1, 5, 25 from Andrew Gordon Brown. 5, 4,
Gordon Brown work. So this is a first, because I have been asking this question for over 15 years. And until probably a couple of weeks ago, the highest number I'd got to was 4. A couple of weeks ago, I got given the number 8. 25 is certainly way out there. But ordinarily, especially when I'm working with CEOs and corporates, the number is usually somewhere between 0, which is a lot of people, and 2 or 3. So if that's the case, why then are we taking our bright and determined young people down pretty much the same path as we took our current leaders? That's what we're doing. So as Ben mentioned, I've spent the most of my career working with senior leaders across pretty much every sector, helping them to become leaders worth following and also lead lives worth living. And I have to tell you, the system is broken. If you sat where I sat, around boardroom tables and with managers and leaders of all kinds, you would know the system is broken. And we can't let it stay broken. If we want a better world, then we need better leaders. And if we want better leaders, we need to change what we teach them, how we do it, and when we do it. So as both Helen and Rachel have talked to the what, I am going to focus my 10 minutes on answering the final 2 questions, which is how and when. I'm going to start with the how, but rather than go down the track of tips and techniques, I want to go deeper. I want to look at the 3 key building blocks that are going to enable us to genuinely make this change. The first is that we need to broaden and deepen our understanding of leadership. And in doing this, I think we need to let go of a number of myths. Myths like leaders are born and not made. Yes, of course, some people are born with certain natural talents and, they're skills that are going to help them become great leaders. But the truth is great leadership, the skills that are required to become a great leader are broad and they're deep, and in the main, they are learned skills. Another myth is that leadership consists of a specific set of skills and behaviors. But the truth is great leadership can be experienced in countless ways. You will know this yourself. And that is going to depend on the individual, their personal blueprint, the skills and knowledge that they bring to the job. And the final misconception that we need to let go of is that leadership is solely about leading other people. Of course, in many instances it is. But is it also about creative leadership, thought leadership, about being a change maker, about challenging the status quo, about creating environments, about driving communities? It's about leading families. But first and foremost, and I think this is so important, leadership is about self-leadership. And before we earn the right to lead others, we have to learn how to lead ourselves. So some of you might know that between my husband and I, we have 5 girls, and they're aged between the ages of, I always get this wrong, 17 and 20-ish, right? They're all different. We have Sian, and Sian is the scholarship child. She won an academic scholarship and a music scholarship for the whole of her senior year. She got straight A's in her GCSEs, and she got straight A stars in her A-level. She ticks all of the current boxes. Sian, and this is completely true, she's the perfect child for this system. She likes to see the path ahead. She likes to know what the rules are. And then when she knows them, she can follow them so that she can succeed. We also have Lara. Now, Lara is dyslexic. She's wildly creative. She's bright. She's funny. She did incredibly well in her GCSEs as well. She's hardworking, but she's also constantly questioning everything. Ill thought out rules, discrimination, a system that insists on only seeing part of the person. Now, the truth is that the school struggles with Lara. They struggle with her questioning, her disinterest in following the normal path. Sian, I predict, is going to get a great job in a great company, and she's going to climb the career ladder. And I am in no doubt that she's going to do really, really well. Lara is probably going to be an entrepreneur, probably because no one's going to give her a job, quite frankly, but mainly because that's who she's born to be. So we need Sian's, but we need Lara's too. Now, the truth about Lara is she spent years thinking she wasn't bright enough. In fact, I remember distinctly the interview with her teacher when she was 7, and she went, she's just not trying hard enough with her reading. And I'm like, well, she is. Maybe she's dyslexic. No, she's just not trying hard enough with her reading. She spent years thinking she wasn't bright enough. She spent years thinking she wasn't pretty enough or slim enough. And she had a long time where she had no idea that her incredible people skills and her entrepreneurial thinking, her questioning, her challenging is probably going to be her passport to success. And to be totally honest with you, if Lara wasn't surrounded by a team of coaches, which is what we are at Ivy House, then I don't know what would have happened to her. In fact, I do have a pretty good idea of what would have happened to her, because I see what happens to so many of her friends. One of our other daughters, Emmy, out of her childhood group of 9 kids, we had 2 anorexics and 5 of them self-harming. So when we as a society adopt a broader understanding of leadership, what we're going to do is we're going to start to value difference. We're going to see the leadership potential in people of all kinds. And it's that mindset that we need if we're going to create real change. Ultimately, leadership is just a life skill. And we need to take this mindset into helping the next generation. So the second crucial building block, if we're going to do this right, is about recognizing that leadership is an inside-out job. What do I mean by that? So I'm the founder and creative director of Ivy House. In fact, I've started 3 businesses in my career. The first didn't work. The second was very successful, and we'll see what happens with the third. But I have never been a CEO. I've worked with plenty of them, and I've helped them be better CEOs, but I have never been a CEO. Why is that? Even though I've started each of these businesses? Well, because quite frankly, I would be a terrible CEO. I mean, truly terrible. I have no interest in looking at balance sheets, or in fact, I have no interest in managing people. But I am really good at developing leadership and life skills programs. I am a good coach. I am good at writing, and I am good at teaching. And these are all valuable talents. But if I'd thought the only way to lead was to be a CEO, it would have been a disaster for me personally and the businesses. So when I say developing leadership and life skills is an inside-out job, what I'm actually meaning is that we need to start by helping people develop their self-knowledge, answering questions like, who am I? Who do I want to be? What are my talents? What are my passions? Where do they cross? Because that's what puts us in our element. What's important to me? What kind of life do I want to create? And how does that influence my decisions? Now, this is maybe a bit controversial, but I guarantee that some of you listening today are in the wrong jobs. I guarantee it. You would thrive more if you're in a different job, one that draws on your natural talents, draws on your blueprint. And that is true for a number of leaders. And that's because if you're as old as me, we were part of a generation that never really got the time, the tools, the expertise, and the encouragement to actually find out who we are. And I'm not talking about going to India for years on end to tramp around in your flip-flops and find out who you are. I'm talking about the fact that we have real tools and mechanisms and ways of teaching people to do this. So as a group of people in education, as you can tell, I feel quite passionately about this, we have the opportunity to change that for future generations. They don't have to struggle like we've had to struggle to find our place. And we can help them start that journey by building self-knowledge. Because when any of us have this level of self-knowledge, we're able to find a path that's right for us, one in which we can thrive as opposed to merely survive. And we need to give generations, future generations, the opportunity to find out what kind of leader they were meant to be, whether or not it's a CEO or a carer. The final building block is to genuinely, and I mean genuinely, value and embrace this kind of learning. And this means making it available to everybody, drawing on true expertise and going on the journey with your students. And in our experience in working with schools, this is part of the thing that some teachers really struggle with, because they're so set up to be the expert. And actually it's quite hard, if they're scared of getting these wrong, but this kind of learning needs to be facilitated, not taught. Right now, we have a generation of kids that think their self-worth is determined by their exams. And in fact, they see themselves only in relation to others. Am I cleverer? Am I dumber? Am I prettier? Am I uglier? It's the lens that we, and by we, I mean society, we've created for them. So if we want them to be robust, if we want them to reconnect with the self-worth they were born with and the confidence that they were born with, they were all born confident, we need to go on that journey with them. We actually need to show them how important this learning is, and that teachers have as much to learn as they do. And that means creating safe places where there is no pass or fail, where they're genuinely free to explore and to share things they're worried about and to be vulnerable. We need to create those places where they can learn the skills that are going to enable them to take themselves to the world. Skills like effective conversations, giving and receiving feedback. I mean, how many adults do not know how to do that? How to get out of negative thought spirals. I've done so much work in schools recently about helping kids to just understand what a thought spiral is and how to get out of it. We need to teach them how to take rejection. I mean, Helen and I have worked together for years, but I do remember coming out of a meeting with a very senior leader at NatWest, the NatWest group, and there was somebody crying on the desk outside his office, and I'm like, what's going on here? And he went, yeah, straight A student, doesn't know how to take feedback, just did his first piece of work. Some asked him to change some things, and that's what I end up with. So the truth is, these are skills that many adults haven't mastered because we've never had the time or we've never been taught. But until we start to value this kind of learning in schools, nothing's actually going to change. So that's my third building block. We need to value and embrace leadership and life skills if we want to embed them in others. So at Ivy House, we've recently begun a podcast, which is very kindly sponsored by Pixel. And the first session in this podcast you should listen to is with Helen. She's a teacher, a very courageous teacher. And she came to talk to me about her lack of confidence, which started in adolescence. And during the conversation, I asked her, how much time do you spend with these kinds of thoughts? And she said she spends around 70% of every single day having feelings of low confidence. So the response from pupils to this podcast has been incredible. What they tell me, it's allowed them to see that teachers are just people also struggling with certain things, but also on a learning journey. And it's also helped them start to get this idea of self-leadership, that if they want to create change in their lives and how they feel, then actually it's down to them and they can do it. So my 3 building blocks in terms of how. We need to broaden and deepen our understanding of leadership. Everyone is the leader of their life, and leadership comes in all shapes and sizes. Secondly, we need to recognize that leadership and life skills are an inside-out job, and it starts with self-knowledge. And finally, we need to show through action that this kind of development is valuable to everyone, including teachers, including ourselves. So the final question then is when? When do people need to get this kind of learning? And the answer is as soon as possible. You know, as the parent of 5 teenagers, we have a golden opportunity when a teenager begins to realize that pretty soon their life is going to be in their hands. That's a fairly common phrase in my household, which is, yeah, next year you're going to be off our accounts, you're going to be spending for yourself, you're going to be earning your own money. And then, you know, as they're going through, how do I get to university? What's that going to mean for our career? Now, all of a sudden, I'm interested. So we need to use this moment to their advantage and give them access to the kind of learning that could be life-changing. At Ivy House, we've created 4 ways that we can help bring this learning to your schools. First, we have a host of free resources on our website. Secondly, we've created the Ivy House Award. That's a program that is facilitated by teachers that brings this kind of learning to years 10, 11 and 6th form students. And as Helen mentioned, they have incredibly just given us the funds to put 1,000 kids through that program for free, because they are so committed. Thirdly, and very excitingly, also supported by NatWest, we're launching the Future Leaders of the Year competition. It's a brand new innovative, it's UK-wide competition for 6th form students, and its purpose is to demystify leadership and inspire students, no matter what their background, to see themselves as leaders. And finally, we offer subsidized places for passionate, open teachers on our Life Leader and Master programs. And what that means is they get to come and sit alongside leaders from Google, from Centrica, from the BBC, from all different businesses, and actually really understand what it means to thrive in this world that their pupils are going into. So as you can see, we're doing everything we can to make it as easy for you to get your hands on the best leadership and life skills learning. So to end, I just wanted to say, you know, I do a lot of talks to leaders in industry, CEOs and their teams. And every day we work with global organizations, helping their future leaders become better leaders. But I've got to tell you that the most important leaders in this country right now are head teachers. Head teachers that are prepared to stand up and say things need to change and are prepared to do something about it. Teachers that are prepared to use these loads of years that young people have in education to better equip them for a changing and a very uncertain world. Because if you're not going to do it, then who will? So thank you for your time, and thank you for listening.